to our candidates forum, and for the short people, you have to move the mic down. Okay, I'm going to start with, and I'm going to steal it so Clint doesn't steal it. My brother-in-law told me this joke. Roman soldier goes into a bar, holds up 2 fingers and says, 5 beers, please. For the folks that don't remember their Roman numerals, the V is a 5. My name is Carolyn Lobsinger, and I'm the editor of the Daily Bee. And I have brought our regional publisher and president of the Pega Media and Pega newspaper groups, Clint Schroeder, with me today. And he is going to moderate our forum tonight. On behalf of the Daily Bee, KRFY, and the Selkirk Associated Realtors, thank you very much for helping make this forum possible. I welcome everybody here and everybody who's watching to the forum. It will be online at krfy.org and on the Daily Bee site. So if you can't make it tonight, tune in, learn about the candidates, and gosh, get out and vote. So some questions have been prepared in advance. Other ones will be submitted by you, the audience. So if you have a question, raise your hand and we'll come and grab the question for you. If you could write the candidate race on it, county commissioner, state house, state senate, so we can make sure to get all the candidates represented and get questions to them. So with no further ado, Mr. Schroeder.
Thank you, Carolyn. Give Carolyn a big round of applause. I promise I have no Roman jokes tonight we will hear from, as Carolyn mentioned, candidates for county commission, state legislature, and senate. But first, if you guys will just stand up really quick, I'll let you introduce yourself in just a moment, but so everybody knows who you are. Brian Donkey for District 1 County Commission, and Steve Johnson, District 1 County Commission. We have Ron Korn for District 3 County Commission, and Glenn Lefebvre. Our state senate candidates for District 1, Jim Woodward and Dan Rose. And state representative candidates, District 1A, Mark Sutter and Karen Matthew. And for District 1B, Cornell Razor and Kathleen Larson. Bonner County Sheriff Daryl Wheeler, Prosecutor Louis Marshall, and Bonner County Assessor Dennis Engelhardt were invited to attend to briefly introduce themselves to the voters. While Daryl and Louis Marshall cannot be with us today, Dennis Engelhardt is here to introduce himself. But please welcome all of the candidates, and Daryl, if you come up for your introduction.
Oh, sorry, Dennis.
My mistake, sorry about that.
That's all right. I've been called worse.
Yeah.
I don't know, is it just me or were those seats bigger when we were in high school? Dennis Engelhardt, Bonner County Assessor. I'd like to start this evening with a few expressions of gratitude. First to the Bonner Bee and KRFY and the Selkirk Real Estate Association for hosting tonight's event. I'd like to thank all of you for being here tonight. I know that the focus of this year's election is mostly on the presidential race, as it probably should be. So I appreciate you choosing to spend some time here with your local candidates. And finally, I'd like to thank all of you who voted for me in the primary election. You didn't have to check that single option, but you did. And you also did it in greater numbers than for any other uncontested candidate. For which I am grateful, and I'm humbled by your vote of confidence and for the efforts of my staff and I to make Bonner County Assessor's Office the best one in the state of Idaho. I'd like to quickly share with you some updates of what's been happening in the office since the primary. We have a full complement of staff for the first time in recent history, I'm told. We have created a new position, in a new construction position that will work year-round, adding those properties to the rolls from the huge backlog that has developed over the years. Our policy of no visit without written consent from the property owner is working well. We're realizing about a 40 to 80% authorization depending on what part of the county you're looking at. My appraisers tell me that between 1 and 10% of the properties that they go out and look at end up being reduced in assessment based on their eyes on appraisal. They also report a positive interaction with the property owners, and I get much the same response from the property owners themselves. I'm happy to let you know that our new website is about 2 months ahead of anticipation and should be released sometime this month. A while back, the county commissioners put the GIS department under the assessor's office, inasmuch as the principal duty of the GIS office is the creation of cadastral maps for assessment purposes. This was logical, and that transition has been seamless. We've added a third appraiser to our commercial unit, whose efforts will be centered around personal property as well as agricultural and timber exemptions. In closing, I'd like to say that I have enjoyed the administrative challenges of working with the professional people at your assessor's office towards the goal of providing the most efficient and equitable services possible. And to that end, I'd like to ask those of you who voted for me in the primary to do so again, and those of you that skipped the primary but are all in for the general election, I ask for your vote as a sign of support for our good work. Dennis Engelhardt for Assessor, thank you and God bless.
Thank you very much. One of the most important things that we would like everybody to be talking about, friends, neighbors, coworkers, colleagues, is that in a presidential election, it is typically our habit to answer the top part of the ballot and be done. And these county elections and local municipal, in addition to our state elections, are so important to the way things are for us in our daily lives. So when you're talking to people about this year's election, though the presidential is very important, please make sure that you know what candidates are on the ballot below that line, so that we can make sure they get the award. Yeah. All right. In this forum, some housekeeping here. Candidates will have 2 minutes to introduce themselves and to answer each question. They'll then have 3 minutes for their closing remarks at the end of the forum. We've talked to our candidates already earlier this evening and made sure that we all are on the same page. This is a question and answer forum. Candidates will not be given time for a rebuttal. Please take the time to answer the question to help everyone differentiate where our candidates stand on these important issues. You can focus on all of the other things in your closing should something pop up that you want to address. Time is being strictly managed. There's a timekeeper right here in the front row. You will be given 15-second warning. When you see that warning, it's time to wrap it up. I would appreciate that very much. These forums provide such a unique opportunity to connect with those seeking to serve our community. There's a lot to cover this evening, so let's get started. First, we've got introduce themselves District 1 County Commission, and first up is Brian Donkey.
Good evening. My name is Brian Donkey, and I'm running for the District 1 Bonner County Commissioner seat. The reason I'm running for this seat is because I deeply love and care about this community that I call home in Bonner County. But I also have deep concerns about the path we're currently going down. I believe we need to do a better job, a thoughtful and thorough job, with our planning for land use and how it impacts the county as a whole. I believe we need our Board of Commissioners to make wiser and more thoughtful, well-deliberated decisions by listening to the voice of the public and considering their ideas, their concerns, and their experience. I believe all of us in this community will do better if we implement those things. The reason I believe I have the ability to act well as a public servant, and indeed being a servant is the way I see an elected representative. I have decades of experience professionally working on large, complex projects, as well as budgets that exceed the county's annual budget. In addition to that, I have years of experience here in the county in service, volunteer service for different county groups within our county government. and so I've gained insight into some of the different topics and issues and processes that are important to our county. I would like to apply that knowledge and experience toward our county commissioner District 1 seat while respecting and valuing the input of our public. Thank you.
Next up, Steve Johnson.
There, that's better. I'm Steve Johnson. I'm a candidate for Bonner County Commissioner because I want to help return common sense leadership to our local government. Common sense leadership, to me, means respectful of the public and the fellow county commissioners. I believe it's common sense to encourage public input. It's common sense to finish the Bonner County Comprehensive Plan and make sure that we have planned growth and affordable housing in that plan. It's just common sense to be responsible and transparent with all taxpayer money. I believe it's just common sense to take care of our county roads and bridges. And I think it's just common sense to take care of our county roads. Excuse me, I already said that. It's just common sense to use all available state and federal money for the improvement of services to all of our Bonner County citizens. And I think it's just common sense that commissioners need to be honest and trustworthy. I've been here for a long time. I was raised here on the family farm in Sago with my 3 brothers. I went to Southside Elementary School in Coquilala, graduated from Sandpoint High, and then went on to University of Idaho and graduated from there. Marguerite and I raised our 4 children on the family farm, and we love it here, and this is our home, and we need to do everything we can to keep it the best possible place we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, for the District 3 Planning Commission, Ron Korn.
Good evening, I'm Ron Korn. I'm running for Bonner County Commissioner, District 3. I've been here for about 27 years, moved here with my lovely bride. Since then, we've had 3 great children. They're all grown, and most of them are out of the house now. All 3 of them are productive citizens in Bonner County. They all work here. They all want to stay here. One of the biggest issues facing our children today is housing. Where are they going to live? Everything has been driven up and up and up because all the out-of-town people are moving here. And we got to look around and ask ourselves, why are they moving here? They're moving here because we have more freedom and liberty than most other places in this country. I'm running for Bonner County Commissioner because I want to preserve those reasons right there, liberty and freedom. We're losing it even here in Bonner County. For those of us that have been here for a while, or even multi-generational, they're seeing their liberty slipping away. They think that we live in a bubble. We don't. It's coming here. People from out of state are bringing their values, even though they say that they're conservative. Their conservatism is a lot different than what ours is. We need to start fighting now and start pushing back to make sure that we're not all using acronyms and everything. My name's Mr. Ron Korn, and that's the only thing I go by. So it's already creeping into our schools, as we've seen, and I want to preserve that, and I want to preserve it for my children and my grandchildren and yours also. I've been here, like I say, for about 27 years. I've got about 25 years of community service in here, and I've given back to the community because I love this community. I moved here to get away and to assimilate to what I found here, not to change it. And I never thought I'd be running for a county job. But as many of you have seen, things are changing and I get upset. I'm not a keyboard warrior. I'm a man of action. So I'm getting the wave. Thank you very much. Ron Korn for Bonner County Commissioner, District 3.
All right, next up, Glenn LaFay.
Hi everybody, I'm Glenn LaFay, running for District 3 Bonner County Commissioner. I know that name is kind of tricky, but if you put an N after Glenn, then you got it. I worked on that for a while, so. I've lived here for 58 years. I'm a graduate of SHS. My father's family is from Bonners Ferry, so I'm a fifth generation North Idahoan. I have a vested interest in Bonner County and what happens within the county. I have 3 adult children that have left the house. I have a significant other in Molly McCann. She's the love of my life. She has 1 child that is away from the house, and we have a teenager of hers living with us right now. I've worked in the service industry for decades here in Bonner County, and I have a pretty good feeling about the people of Bonner County. I know who they are, I talk to them on a regular basis, and I hear a lot from the people of Bonner County. I think that's a benefit to what I'm going to be doing here for the people of Bonner County if I were elected. There may be more people out there that are qualified than I am. There might be people that are overqualified for this position, but those people did not stand up and run for this position. I am here to represent the people of Bonner County. I'm an outdoorsman. I love the outdoors. I love fishing. I love hunting. I grew up doing that. That's part of the Bonner County culture. I'm a hobby naturalist. I'm a bird nerd. I just like being out in our land. I care deeply about protecting our natural resources and access to our public lands. We should not be diminishing our access to public lands. I'm very adamant about that. We need to maintain the land that we have and not vacate out. I'm a nonpartisan. I'll represent everybody in here regardless of your political affiliation. The BOCC position is not a partisan position. It's not something that requires you to put in a culvert and be a partisan commission. So, in ending, thank you all very much for coming and attending, and I look forward to being your county commissioner. Thanks.
All right. Switching gears to House of Representatives, District 1A, Karen Mithi.
Can you hear me? I'm Karen Matei, and I'm running for House Seat 1A here in Idaho, District 1. And I'm running because I want to improve the quality of life for all North Idaho families. Not just the summer folks, but the year-round folks, our seniors on a fixed income. And there are ways to do that haven't been done. I believe healthcare decisions should be between patients, their families, and their providers. I believe that government does not belong in our doctor's offices. Now, this is not just my opinion, it's the majority opinion of more than 1,500 unaffiliated and Republican voters that I've gone on to so far. And I approach these conversations like the journalist I was for more than 20 years, not hammering them with my platform, but asking them about their concerns. They care about other issues as well, as do I. They want a long-term solution to our escalating property taxes, and they want the state to properly fund our public schools. But the loss of our doctors here in Idaho was the issue that surfaced most often. We've lost more than a quarter of our OBGYNs, more than half our maternal fetal specialists statewide. All 4 here in Bonner County, all 4 OBGYNs, maternal fetal specialists, and gynecologists as well. But the loss of our doctors here in Idaho, we've lost more than now, a recent poll shows that 59% of our family practitioners are leaving or thinking about leaving. Over the last 2 years, okay.
Next up, Mark Sutter.
Hi everyone, thanks for being here. Really appreciate you being here. I'm Mark Sauter. I'm your current state representative for Seat 1A. Before I go any further, I just wanted to introduce and say thank you very much to my love, the lady that I call the real Jane Sauter. sitting in front of you. So, thanks, Andy, for being here. I retired from the fire service after 30 years. I volunteered here. I came here in the 60s and ultimately retired here and moved here in 2012. And I've been actively involved in our community ever since. The last 2 years have been hyper involved in how things go. I don't believe I've lost, or I've kept my eyes on our community and voted to our community every chance I've had. Whether it's women's health care, our property tax situation, or supporting education, I've been there every time. I've taken plenty of hits on the chin or the nose, but regardless, I vote for our community. Yes, I have a conservative side of me, but most of all, I answer to all of you. At the ballot box, and certainly when I see you at the Panda or out on the street. So I'm an advocate for our women's health. I've voted along and to turn around our different statutes every chance I've had. I was active in 2023 with a couple of minor changes to our women's health, our abortion standards. And then this year we had 3 different standards that changed that will make things a little bit better. So given the opportunity, that's my interest. Last but not least, I have 15 seconds. So I passed 5 bills this year, and my number 1 bill to bring back next time, or this session, I can get reelected, is a women's health one. So I'll explain it later. Thank you.
Thank you. And for District 1B, Catherine Larson.
Hello. I've lived here for a little over 9 years, and I have been coming out here for over 30 years to visit family ever since I met my husband. I love North Idaho. One of the unintended benefits of running for office has been that I've gotten to meet so many incredible people, talk to so many people out in Boundary County, Bonner County, all over the place. And I'm just struck by the ingenuity, the experience, the just quality of people. We're fiercely independent. We're strongly committed to personal freedom, and it's just an amazing group of people. So I decided to jump in and run to protect that and to help us be more of who we are. We would give the shirts off our back for a neighbor regardless of their political affiliation, and I just love that. I really struggle with this speech, and I don't usually struggle with speeches, and so I was trying to figure out what that was about. And I think part of it is that I'm running to battle the political gamesmanship, and yet I see political gamesmanship happening all around me. We've been tipping the scale. There's been placement of people into office without elections. There's been money that's spent with a Nevada McShane group that was responsible for all of the ads that have gone out, and yet I believe that I can still make a difference, and I believe that the impossible can happen because it always has in my life. I've raised 3 children in a household below the poverty level, and then went on to have a really successful career, which is one of the reasons that I will fight for every single North Idahoan, regardless of your circumstances, to have opportunity. And I was able to work with small companies, mom and pops, nonprofits, and companies that have more employees than we have people living in Boundary and Bonner County, and I helped them with their most difficult issues. So I know I can go down to Boise and I can represent us.
And for District 1B, Cornell Rizzer.
Thank you, Davey, for putting this on. Thank you, Realtors, and for the opportunity to be here tonight. Thank you for all spending a nice evening with a bunch of political hacks. I grew up here. I went to high school here. I went to college, North Idaho College. I went to the University of Idaho. I had plans to become a veterinarian, and then a pretty girl took my eye, and I ended up working in the woods and in the mills. But I learned some things. My wife and I have had the Army Surplus Store since 1981. Right now I'm on a forced, unscheduled vacation, but we plan to get it back open soon. I've been involved in the local politics since the early 80s. I love to serve people, to help people. When I was a county commissioner from 2009 to 2012, I actually would call people back and they would remark after a quiet piece on the phone, after I called them back, they would say something like, "You called me back." I do that, I respond, I believe in serving the people. I was a commissioner from 2009 to 2013, late 2012, early 2013. I was a county commissioner chair from 2011 to 2012. We successfully coordinated with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and over the Endangered Species Act here. I know how to work with other counties, with other states. During that time, I created a coalition of 13 counties in Idaho, Washington, and Montana as we worked with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife to correctly deal with the critical habitat for the northern caribou. I was the chair. I've been involved in the Sutton County Central Committee. I've been a legislative chair, a legislative district chair. I've spoken and trained on the Second Amendment, reclamation of state lands, interagency coordination. I've been a trainer in parliamentary procedure. I believe in work, and I'll get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and I'll go to bed at 11 and work for you hard in Boise. And I will listen to you, and you will know that I will vote according to the Constitution and the moral contingencies of this country. You can trust me down there. I'm an open book, and much to my wife's dismay sometimes. I'm looking forward to the questions tonight, and I'm going to sit down now.
Thank you. Shifting gears to District 1 State Senate. Dan Rose.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Alberta, Mr. Schroeder, and Ms. Bob Singer. We gather tonight to discuss information that will probably influence your vote. Hopefully you'll hear with an open mind the things that we have to offer. But more importantly, you're going to hear information relative to principles and culture. I moved here in 2014, mid-2014, so I've been here more than 10 years now. I recognize that the values of Bonner County, first and paramount, are God. Secondly, government tax, independence from government tax and regulation. Good schools, both public and private. Moral health care. Resilience of spirit, respect of neighbors, and Trump populism. Though Jim and I served similar military backgrounds, both as commissioned officers in active duty and the National Guard, he and I differ in the execution of state representation. Jim has earned a dubious 50% rating from the Idaho Freedom Foundation, a lifetime rating. I intend to achieve a 90% rating from the IFF. In 2021, the the Bonner County Republican Central Committee, passed a resolution. And I voted yes to that resolution, and that resolution was to remove Jim from the Republican Party.
That's time.
We didn't do it lightly. What's that?
That's
It's
time.
done?
Time.
Okay, thank you. I'll discuss more.
Okay. Next up, Jim Woodward.
Good evening, thank you. Jim Woodward, running for the state senate position, or I usually say asked to serve as your representative there in the state senate. One of the questions we do get asked all the time is, why are you running? And sometimes I ask myself that, why am I running? In some moments. But when I get in here and get on stage and in a high school that I helped build some 30 years ago, and I'm looking at all these faces that I recognize, I know the answer is I'm running here because I want to represent this community and the people I've come to know and I value so much. I want to preserve the Idaho that we all enjoy. And so, I've come to think about that a little bit differently recently or in the last couple of years, because I know we have so many people who have come from different backgrounds. It was mentioned whether you've been here for generations or whether you've been here a short time, we all have this reason why we're here in Idaho. And I actually think deep down at its root that reason is very similar. We're looking for the liberties and freedoms we have here. We're looking for a light touch of government, low taxes, but yet effective government from those taxes, whether it's schools, roads, so on. So I think finally, one of the things that I have really come to realize is that what I value in Idaho is that the live and let live atmosphere that we've always had for so long. That we do respect differences. We might not agree, but we still have enough room here in Idaho where we can spread ourselves out a little bit and know that somebody has a different idea than us. So I guess then the question becomes, who do you want to send down to Idaho? I offer myself up. My background, engineering degree, naval submariner, a business owner here, and of course, lifelong Idahoan. So I'm asking for your vote because I would like to go down and represent the community, represent many different perspectives, and hear everyone and come up with the best answer for all of us. Thanks.
All right. So, here come the questions. And first will be our county commissioner candidates. And we will rotate in order so everybody gets a chance to answer first and last. So first up, Mr. Domke, if you would please take the podium. And the first question is, in your opinion, what's the greatest challenge facing Bonner County? Two-part question. How would you, should you be elected, solve it?
I believe the greatest challenge facing our county at this time is growth that exceeds our ability to support that growth with our infrastructure. And the way I believe we address that is multifaceted. First and foremost, we do need to complete the update to our county's comprehensive plan, but we need to do it in a very thoughtful way that's based on the review of facts and data. So it's data-driven, that we can answer the why questions that people ask about how we've come to the conclusions that we do. And then we need our county code for those land use regulations to be even more thoughtfully written so that they are something that can actually be enforceable and that we will have equal application of the law to all citizens, to all applicants. Right now, when you go and have a public hearing for a potential land use issue, it's kind of the wild, wild west. You're not really sure what the outcome's going to be. It's more driven by personality than by findings of facts and consistent execution of the law. That should change, and that is what I hope to represent for you should I be elected to office. Thank you.
Okay, next up, Steve Johnson.
In my opinion, the cost of living that we've recently encountered, especially the cost of housing, is probably the biggest challenge that we face. I think that some of the solutions are, I attended a thing called an economic summit put on by the council, the economic council here, out at the University of Idaho Organic Ag Center, and there were some fantastic speakers there that assured us that we are not the only ones encountering this rise in housing and this rise in overall cost of living. There are people actively working on solutions that are practical solutions. One thing that we have done here is a good start, almost complete, comprehensive plan that does allow for high-density housing, for affordable housing, with due respect for private property rights. I have 2 grown children my wife and I have 2 grown children that are living with us on our farm in Sable, and I have friends who have grown children who would like to provide for them somehow to stay here. Oftentimes the cost of the land is more almost than the cost of the housing. So if we can continue using common sense, leadership, and faith in our institution and in our, whoops, I can't see. 15 seconds. Okay. Yeah. So there's solutions, and I think there's room for all of us. I kind of disagree with the idea that there's only room for some of us. I think we can make room for all of us who want to share our quality of life and our love for this area. Thank you.
All right, some questions for Ron.
So there's many things that Bonner County is facing right now. I'm going to try and limit it to 2, but obviously, like Mr. Donkey said, land use issues are huge in this county, and we do need to get a grip on it. One of the things that's going on right now that a lot of people are upset about is the commercial businesses that are moving into these rural areas, rural zones, and it's disrupting the people that live there in that area now. Property rights is probably one of the biggest contentious issues right now going on. And when people ask, well, are you for or against property rights? Well, I'm obviously for property rights. The question is, whose property rights are you for? And that's the hard thing to wrap your head around. There's usually at least 2 people involved, 2 property owners, an A and B. And A wants his property rights upheld, and B wants his property rights upheld. So how do we go about doing that? I am for limited government. I don't think government needs to step in when it's not necessary, but we do need limited government. Otherwise, we'd have anarchy, and we'd have neighbor A shooting neighbor B, and there we go. So, in order to do that, there are zoning regulations put into effect. Those rural areas are zoned that way to try and keep that rural aspect of living in that area. And then you have a big commercial business that wants to come in and take 80 acres, 100 acres, whatever it is, and turn it into a commercial business of a high traffic area. And it's just not right. What has to happen is we need to make these people that want to have commercial businesses go through a rezoning process. It's a lot harder to get your property rezoned than it is to get a conditional use permit, which is what's going on right now. And I'm out of time to talk about anything else. I got 9 seconds. Business meeting decorum. We're not getting anything accomplished in this county because business meeting decorum is horrible. Yesterday was my first meeting that I sat in on, and the business decorum was great, and we had many issues on the agenda, and it went very well, and I'll talk about it later. Thank you.
Thank you. And Brenda Cook.
Okay, I don't know if I can answer this concisely, but there's more than just one problem. There's a couple of them. Actually, I've got 3 or 4, but I'll make this quick. There's so many. Growth and land use, I think, is a main issue for us right now. We need to hire a professional planning commissioner or a comp plan consultant. The last update used a consultant and encourage public input. We need to get public input on what's going on with our land use. Shore up county code to better review infrastructure, natural resources, and our public services. We need to take care of our septic, our roads, our surface water, our fire, our law enforcement. All of that needs concentration right now. We need to reduce conflict on the BOCC board. I want to see the conflict around public comment come to an end. Too much time and money is spent on the issue. It's almost become weaponized. There are established laws using open meeting law and Robert's Rules of Order and freedom of speech that allow for a public comment and have been working for umpteen years. This isn't rocket science. So I support a 20 max meeting or a 20 max comment at the beginning of the county meetings. Allow comment for each agenda item and remove those long-winded oppressive standing rules that are currently going on. Remove requirement to sign in via Zoom by 9 a.m. The city does have a much better plan for that, so I think we could follow that example and be able to open up public comment. So those are my two. I think there's a chance to make some money for the county, finding revenue sources. Out-of-state user fees would be great for recreational facilities. We have many states surrounding us, and they come here. That's an untapped resource that we need to get into. Also, implement developer fees. Infrastructure costs needs to fall on the developer and not the taxpayer. Thank you very much.
Okay, our next question is about growth. Shocking. Growth pressure is an issue for all North Idaho communities. What is, in your opinion, the role of the Bonner County Commission on this topic, and what is the number one priority related to it? First up is Steve Johnson. So, it's a long one. So, growth pressure is an issue in all of North Idaho's communities. What do you, growth, pressure, no growth. Yes. So, what do you believe is the main priority or the role of the commission when it comes to this specific topic?
Well, I think the role of the commission as far as growth in our area is to make sure that we have an orderly process to evaluate anybody that applies for a conditional use permit, anything that varies from the comprehensive plan. So the first step, I believe, is the county commission to complete the plan, again, with respect for private property rights and with the respect for the whole variety of people that we have in our county, some of them on fixed incomes, some of them just starting out. I know that when my wife started out, our first house was $24,500, and when I go by the car lot, I see that you can't even buy a half-ton pickup for that. So I think the county commission is valuable and necessary in making sure that we have a plan, and I think the plan that's being developed, like I said before, it isn't finalized yet, but it's getting close, and I think it has allowed a lot of public input, and there's more public input that can come, and I'm sure that that's going to be a big step in making sure that we all have housing for ourselves and our kids, and hopefully our grandkids. Thank you.
Thank you. Rob Clark.
So yes, growth is an issue here. Like I said in my opening statement, people are coming here because they want to enjoy their freedoms and liberties ever since the COVID back in 2020, when those federal and state mandates were taking place across the country of making them wear a mask or take the jab or whatever that was. They've sought refuge here because we did not implement those ideas. So that being said, what are we going to do about it? We can't build a wall. Most of us that are here in this building right now came here from some other place. And if we did, if we're a native, our parents or grandparents came here from some other place. So what right do we have to build a wall? Okay, so that's on the extreme side of things. It is government's job to try and limit everything, try and curb it, try and push it in the right direction. And as I said earlier, one of the ways of doing that is by changing the CUPs, the conditional use permits, and having these developers and all reapply for rezoning, which is a lot harder to do. But we have to be careful as government. We can close this down, the government can close this down by putting too many restrictions on the landowner, and therefore we don't have any new building. That's, for some people, might sound great. You get to keep your rural property next to you for 100 acres instead of 5 20-acre parcels. Unfortunately, what that does for our kids and our grandchildren is it raises the prices of housing and land in the area. It's basic economics 101, supply and demand. So we have to find that perfect balance, if you will, in between building and construction, new housing, and we still need to preserve, if you will, the rural aspects of Bonner County. I do believe that, yes, developers do need to pay for that infrastructure that's going on. It does not need to be passed on to you and me. We did not cause that issue. that needs to be paid for by the developer. So impact fees, I am in full support of. Thank you.
All right, so question for Kevin Fay.
I think we need to balance property rights with growth. By following our planning and zoning laws and our comp plan, we'll be creating that balance. Idaho land use law, planning and zoning are the legal tools county use to plan and control how they grow and how we are growing as a community. If we stick to those plans, we protect private property rights by establishing clear guidelines. Our planning and zoning laws are not heavy-handed here in the county. They don't need to become heavy-handed. The community has been loud and clear, and they want to stop the thoughtless development that has been already skirting an already tight system and lax rules. Yeah, the county has been using loopholes like comp plans, amendments, rezones, inconsistent code interpretation. All that needs to change. We need to have more communication with the folks, take a look and consider everything that comes across the table and make the right decision based on public input as well as using the staff that's available to us. Thank you very much.
Brian Duffy.
So the county commissioners, they have multiple ways and responsibilities with which to help manage growth in our county. You've heard it addressed already, but the first and most important is they actually oversee the county's planning commission. They appoint the members to that commission, and they oversee the work and direct the work of that commission. They need to take responsibility in selecting the right people with the right backgrounds of experience to help make those recommendations. Then they need to go through a thorough vetting process with the public before adopting changes to our comprehensive plan. As we then look at how the comprehensive plan is interpreted to actually update and modify our county land use regulations, we need to again garnish public input. We need to understand if the language that's being proposed will impact our community in ways that have not been considered. I also fully support impact fees because we do want those who are actually creating the growth to help bear the cost of the need for additional infrastructure. The Board of County Commissioners is also responsible for overseeing the budgets and the implementation of most of that infrastructure. So again, we need to have a comprehensive and thorough way of looking at where are those impacts going to be, where is the funding coming from. I don't agree with the idea that we should just look for every dollar we can get from the federal government for that funding. Those dollars have strings attached. Those strings cost money. They limit our autonomy at the local level. We need to be really thoughtful and considerate about all of those decisions and not make them just looking for a dollar. So we need to understand the immediate impact and the long-term impact of each decision that we make before we commit to it. Thank you.
By the way, these are really great questions. Thank you all. One of the topics that came up a number of times is first responders. So the final question for the commissioners is, while the growth numbers in Bonner County are definitely by percentage outpacing the increase to our first responder team, what would you do, and where, if anywhere, that you can identify, would you be able to find the funding to increase this much needed service? And Ron Korn, you are up first.
So that's a great question. Like I said earlier, a lot of the local fire districts are implementing impact fees and have been for the last few years. Unfortunately, those impact fees are restricted to certain things that they can use and not use. They cannot use it on personnel, if I understand it right. They can only use it on equipment and all. And what the fire districts really need is more personnel. They're having a hard time with it, and I'm not sure exactly why. Coming from a background of a volunteer for the last 25 years, there's people out there in this community that want to give back, such as everyone sitting up here on this panel tonight. We're all doing this to give back to our community. There's plenty of people out there that want to help. I believe that a lot of the different agencies have made it a little hard on people that want to volunteer, whether that's filling out paperwork, 4-page job applications, or whatever that is. Back in the year 2000, 1999, when I joined Search and Rescue for the first time, it was real easy to get in, and we were very much appreciated. Now, unfortunately, we have unionized fire districts, which is raising the cost on a lot of things, and the union looks down on the volunteers because it's taking away, if you will, from what they do. They rather have paid personnel. As taxpayers, we need to start going to our fire district meetings and start talking and giving them our input on how we want our tax dollars to be spent wisely. I think that's it. Thank you.
So thank you very much. Okay, we're going to shift over to our legislative candidates. First, we will hear from House. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. Did I skip over you, Glenn? Oh, yeah, you got that. No, please, will you please answer that question? That's what happens when I look this way, not this way.
Thanks, Ron. Well, this goes back to basically growth and land use. If we stick to the comp plan and kind of slow down this development that we have going on right now, that's going to allow for us to catch up and put our money where it needs to be. Again, I keep talking about our roads and our surface water, our fire, our EMS, our law enforcement. If we just stick to the comp plan, it all starts there. And those out-of-state user fees. I think that is an untapped resource, and I stand behind this 100% that is a great way for us to make money. So you and I don't have to pay for this. I mean, that's a considerable chunk of money with all the tourism that we get, all these states that surround us, especially up here in the Panhandle. We're sandwiched in between 2 states and a province that we could generate quite a bit of money just to play in our water or run around in our mountains. I think we should do that, and that's going to offset that. That money could be allotted to EMS. There are several different ways that we could make that money. And again, developer fees, yeah, that'll work for the infrastructure and everything else. But I think that's where I stand on that. EMS and Leo are very important subjects, and we need to fund those people and make sure that their cost of living is there, and we can afford to keep great service here in the county. Thank you.
Very good. All right, now we'll shift over. Jeez, how is that possible? Brian, would you like to take that question? All right.
So as the question was related to how do we address the budget issue, how do we find the funds in order to help provide the financing for such an important service, I believe it starts with our budget process. And what I would like to see our county do is, as we are going through and developing the budget for the coming year, with each budget line item request, we actually ask that department or that requestee to justify that cost against state statute. Are we actually obligated as a county to provide that service? If we're not, we need to seriously consider if it's appropriate to spend your tax dollars on someone's special interest. I believe we could find a lot of funding to help deal with actually mandated and critical services if we were to approach our budget in that way. So let's use business sense. Let's use good planning and good budgeting to make thorough decisions. We're not doing it that way right now, but we have the opportunity to do so. So that's what I would challenge our county to do, and everyone who comes to request county tax dollars, I'd like them to show me where in our state statute that is a county government obligation. Thank you.
Very good. Mr. Johnson.
We should follow somebody not quite so tall. So I live out in the county at the end of Beers Hubbard Road, and fire protection for us is critical. Unfortunately, in my opinion, people, some of them live in single wide trailers that have like a burn rate. I think it's like 3 or 4 minutes or something. And so fire protection obviously is important everywhere, but it's especially important in the county, and I feel much better knowing that we've got the fire departments. And in follow-up to Mr. Korn, I know that when the Sago Fire Department started, it was mostly volunteers, and I certainly hope that there's a future and a place for volunteers, but at the same token, professionals who have adequate training and are insured properly and equipped properly, in my opinion, are a necessity. And as far as where the money comes from, I think our impact fees need to be reflective of the actual costs. When a development is approved, then there needs to be a full accounting of all the essential services, everything from schools to fire to roads to the sewer system. And I think that money, eventually, with continued use of the comprehensive plan, I think that money will be enough to hire qualified and professional firefighters.
Now it's so great to say, and now. All right, we're changing up, like I mentioned, House of Representatives candidates, and let's see, Karen, you go first. So this question is, where do you stand on Proposition 1? Do you support it or not, and why or why not?
I absolutely support it, and I've made no secret about that. And the reason that I support it is that it will allow voters to vote for the person rather than the party. It will give a voice to thousands of independent voters in our district that don't have a voice now. But the primary reason that I think it's an awesome idea is that it will put power in the hands of the voters, and it will require politicians to appeal to a much broader spectrum of voters. In fact, they might even have to get out and door knock like I'm doing now.
Thank you very much. Okay. You're next.
Proposition 1. I think it's a great example of the challenge we have to vote on almost anything in the Capitol. Where you want to give up and what do you want to keep and how bad you want it. I think it's pretty much overwhelming that I think our communities would like to see us have an open primary. I also think it's pretty overwhelming that most people, I think, like the current voting system that we have now. And I sure do. I don't have any issues with our voting system. We don't have any errors. And last but not least, my quick points would be, I don't think that elected officials should be weighing in on this. I think it's your decision to make. I think we have a very intelligent electorate, and I think you guys should all read and talk among yourselves and determine what's most important to you. I think you have to think about what do you want to give up. Are you willing to give up the election system that we have right now that's pretty much flawless and chance it that the new system will be just as good? I'm not convinced that it is. So I have some concerns that Prop 1 will actually work out for us. I also am concerned about what will happen in the Capitol with it. So for me, I have concerns about the proposition itself, not the open primary part of it, but just the ranked choice voting part of it. I'm not sure that's really what we want to do, and I'm not sure where it's all going to go. So I'm open, and I really would like to see what our community does, because after all, for me, I'm your representative and I represent you. So I'm waiting to hear back. So thank you.
Okay. Catherine Larson.
I support Proposition 1. Biggest reason is I look at the 250,000 veterans who are willing to give up their life for us to have the opportunity to vote. And they've been trying to be neutral in their position on politics. and yet we're requiring them to come here and affiliate with the Republican Party in order to have a voice at all. I think that's wrong. I look at the misinformation that's coming out trying to battle it. There's a ton of money pouring into this state to defeat it, and that's because it will break the power of special interests here. It will mean that we will get candidates that are less extreme. I think that's a good thing. I look at the misinformation. There's not a lot of attribution. Some of the stories, I just looked up one about Maine and how there were 6,000 voters who didn't get to vote, and if you look at the actual details, they did get to vote. They just didn't vote for a second choice, and their first choice didn't get selected first round. It's not that complicated. We've simulated, and the costs that are being shot around, and the counties are saying it's all going to be up to the counties to figure it out. We're throwing up smoke screens on something that is just the right thing to do, to put the power of the vote back in the hands of the people.
I know you like straight answers. I'm not for Prop 1. I believe that what Catherine was talking about was actually the fact that 8,000 votes were exhausted, and some people got to vote twice, some people got to vote once. I grew up in a country where every American got one vote, and it's been working just fine in this county. I was involved as a county commissioner to canvass the votes. In the event that a vote had to be audited, it was a simple matter of hand counting the ballots, and no matter what they say, to recount a ranked choice vote, that especially one that has a number of people on the ballot, is a job for a computer system only. It would take far too long to do it by hand. Some of these take months, have had months before they knew who the winner was. In some cases, the algorithm decided that the winner wasn't the winner, and then 3 months later, they installed someone else. We have a system that works well here. It's transparent. Our county our county clerks are able to operate it and instruct poll workers rather easily. It's been working for generations. I don't think we should be fixing things that aren't broken.
All right. Let's see here. Okay, we will make sure I've got everything I've got here. We've got so many questions. I think the winner will be women's health on this next round. I just want to make sure that we have, So let's just go back, candidate 2, so Mark Stoller will start, and the question is, what are you, or what will you do as a representative to improve women's health? In addition to that, is there a part of that that attracts and retains doctors to Bonner County?
I said in the primary that we need to provide clarity for all of our medical staff in our state. The statutes that we have right now there's certainly quite a bit a number that are very vague, and we owe it to all of our healthcare professionals to provide them good, clean direction. First off, we need to clarify and clear the way for a women's health exception. I'm already working on something like that, not something like it, but something to bring forward. So I need to get through a general election first, but that's my plan, is to bring that forward. I'm already in contact and in discussion with our Idaho Medical Association and others to see if we can't do something to clarify that. We owe that to our medical community. We also need to continue to support the Idaho State University Rural Doctor Program. We also need to continue to look at all of our abortion statutes and make sure that it's very clear what is and what is not within state code. I think if we give our doctors the good, clear direction and good, clear our stances for our state, and I believe we have a very pro-life state, we owe it to our community to make sure everybody knows where we are and where we stand. So I think that it starts with working on a bill and getting that going. I ran a number of them, and I know I can do it again. So it starts with working with a lot of people and building up a consensus. So I'd like to get a chance to do that. So thank you.
Excellent. Okay. Kathleen Marshall. No, we're just alternating. Yeah.
So women's health care. I don't believe that politicians belong in our doctor's offices. What we found with the laws that have been put in place is that we've got politicians, some of whom believe that you can swallow a camera to see if you're pregnant. We have them making decisions about women's health care. Women shouldn't have to be on the deathbed. There shouldn't be a decision for doctors. Doctors shouldn't have to be thinking, are you really going to die or are you just going to get sick for the rest of your life before they can do something? So again, this shouldn't be legislated. So I think that fundamentally what we need to do is we need to get the politicians out and let the doctors and the women make these decisions. I believe that in attracting doctors back into this state, that's part of what we need to do, is to recognize that they are the experts in medical situations, and that's where those decisions should be. We can put in policies that make it easier for women in situations like, child care. We can have policies around, there are a lot of policies that we can put into place that would make it easier for women and doctors. But as far as attracting doctors and healthcare people back into the state, I think part of it is that we need to pay fair wages. We need to pay fair wages to our law enforcement as well. We need to pay fair wages to our educators. So I think that there's a whole possibility around attracting experts back into our state, and part of that is getting politicians out of the business of telling experts what to do.
Thank you. Mr. Razor.
Generally, when this question is asked, it's tied into a couple of falsities that have been passed around for quite a bit of time. I'm going to read state law for you, and Idaho state law is pretty much always written in an understandable way to the layperson. The following shall not be considered criminal abortions for purposes of subsection 1 of this section. This is in 18.622. The physician determined in his good faith medical judgment and based on the facts known to the physician at the time that the abortion was necessary to prevent the death of the pregnant woman. Idaho Code gives all the protections needed. I did a fairly cursory internet search and discovered that there are multiple hospitals in Idaho with active and thriving obstetrician gynecology facilities in their hospitals. So when you send me to Boise, one of the things I will do is coordinate with those hospitals to find out what it is that they're doing that is so successful. All hospitals are required to report any abortions they produce. In the 2 northern counties, well actually in Kootenai and Bonner County and Boundary County, in the last 20 years, no abortions have been reported. I talked with a radiologist today who came to my house to give me a donation. It was amazing. He drove down from Boundary County and he found me. I guess he had Google on his phone or something. At any rate, he said that modern radiology easily detects the critical situations like that. And he has had a part of doing that. So if it's a fallopian tube, a birth, that is quickly ascertainable. And we need to quit muddying these waters. We're not asking for politicians to be in the room with the doctor and the patient, unless the politician's a doctor like Ron Paul. But the point of the matter is, I'm all for women's health. I happen to be for men's health as well, though.
Karen, thank you.
All right, first let me be clear. This is not a women's health issue. This is a healthcare crisis that we are in, and it's affecting men as well. 59% of our family practitioners are leaving or thinking about leaving, and that's a very recent poll. So it is an issue that is affecting all of us. The GOP majority in Boise had 2 years to fix this problem, and it was an easy fix. Only House Minority Leader Ilana Rebell introduced a bill that would have made a health exception, an exception to protect the health of the mother, to the abortion ban. Right now, it's only her life. And doctors don't like the vagueness. They don't know when they can intervene. Well, then the GOP majority ignored that despite pleas from the ACLU and physicians group and citizens groups. They did nothing. Instead, they doubled down on criminalizing doctors. They passed 3 separate bills, and this was unanimous, so my opponent would also pass those bills. 3 more bills in 2024 that criminalize doctors. Now, if you ask me, that is no way to keep our doctors here in Idaho.
Thank you. All right, second question.
What about the senators?
They're coming up next, don't worry, I won't skip them. I've given them their own section. That was a very valid question. I mean, given my performance this evening. Okay, Catherine Larson, you are up first on the second question. And the question is, how do you propose to improve accountability to the constituency here in Bonner County on your decisions and votes?
The answer to that question is, I think that your representatives have a responsibility to communicate with you very effectively about, first of all, listening to you and finding out what the people in Boundary and Bonner County care about and what your will is as far as state legislature. And then I think that we have a responsibility to communicate back to you. Here are the bills that are coming up. This is what is in these bills. Here's some of the positive things. Here's some of the negative things. These will be the trade-offs that happen according to what is in this bill. And then voting based on, then again, more feedback. As far as accountability right now, one of the things that we see is the Idaho Freedom Foundation has taken over the conservative rating system. And the way that you get your conservative rating is by being obedient to what they tell you, how they tell you to vote on particular bills. So I don't think that that's an effective accountability rating system, because what it really tells you is who's obedient. So I think that we need a better accountability system, and I don't know if the best way is what I was talking about before, where we have a responsibility to communicate directly with you, have town halls, have open door policy, be able to answer the phone and look you in the eye and tell you what snuck into bills, because that's another thing that happens is they sneak things into bills, or they'll bring a bill up in front of another bill. And so the one thing I know is it's not the IFF's conservative rating. That's not our accountability system.
Mr. Razor, same question.
I'm going to do the same thing I did when I was a county commissioner. I created a spreadsheet. I took notes. I called people, and I created an entire series of questions that I asked, so that I made sure I followed through on every question I got from a constituent. Followed through till we were able to come to some sort of conclusion and resolution, or discovered that there was no resolution available. That will be one of the methods. Another method is with the modern systems we have with email mailing lists. I'm going to use the legislator's mailing list. And then thirdly, I actually met with the director of Idaho Public Television the other day. We had breakfast at the Hoot Owl, and he liked it. The ideas that he had, and I believe Idaho Public Television provides a great service in streaming and all of the legislative hearings, the legislative sessions. Their budget is funded $9 million by donors, and currently about $3.7 million from the state that they've asked for. At least $1.7 million of that budget is earmarked for continuing the service of streaming the legislative sessions, the legislative committee sessions, and all of those things that make your government transparent to you so you can watch what's going on. So that's one of the other aspects that we have available in Idaho, and I think it's a good one. But I will be in constant contact. I think there's actually a mail program called that, but that's probably not what I'll use. I believe the legislature has its own, and I will be making use of that, staying in contact with constituents in this county and in Boundary County.
All right.
constituents as possible. I think I've shown that so far in the way that I've run my campaign. I think there are really great ways to connect with legislators, like Bonner County Alerts, and express where you stand on issues and votes. I think the real problem is that the GOP often is a little trigger happy, right? They'll hear from one person or one horrible story, and then they'll introduce a bill to address that issue without really fully exploring the long-term impacts that that bill is going to have on the majority of their constituents. Certainly the abortion ban is one of those. The new parental consent law is one of those. Even our governor expressed concern on the very day that he signed it, and it was unanimous. The GOP voted unanimously for that. So I think the problem is that, you know, our legislators need to listen better, and they're out there. And I've seen a number of votes this past session, and I was watching very closely, where the legislature totally bypassed local input. School trustees, the guns in the schools law is one example. Trustees were against it. Law enforcement was against it. Thankfully, it did not pass, but I just saw that a lot of those lawmakers on the Republican side were ignoring input from their own constituents. So I guess the bottom line is that I think legislators just really need to listen.
I think the legislators do listen. I hold meet and greets throughout the session. I write for the newspaper, I write for the Reader, the standard communications, phone, email. The other thing I would say is you need to be present. You need to be around the community. Another thing that you can watch actually besides public television is if you get a YouTube TV, you can watch KTVB in Boise, a 208 program that talks about statewide politics. I think it's Monday through Friday evenings about 5. So it's a good watch. Whether you like it, if it's political or not, you still get good information out of it. As far as the parental consent bill and a couple other bills that have been mentioned, I think it's like a lot of things. You have to read the whole bill. I voted for the parental consent bill because I think parents should need to know. 14-year-old young lady that gets pregnant, I think her parents ought to be involved in whatever decision she wants to make. So I don't have a problem with parents knowing what's going on. Yes, there are some trade-offs. I spoke to plenty of people around our community who all recognize that there could be problems. Governor Little said the same thing. We could have problems. In that case, we'll have to remedy those problems. But do we owe it to parents and also to our kids for everyone to be informed? I think we do. Guns in schools were mentioned. I voted for that bill because I know there are school districts that arm their teachers. They're a long way from law enforcement. That was a tough vote for me. I let it be known on the floor, 15 seconds, let it be known on the floor that I thought that bill lacked a lot of things: local control, training, communications, selection of people. I worked really hard after that vote. I was a part of it to stop it. Actually to get it modified, and then ultimately it failed. Thank you.
Thank you. I have one that came up actually 3 times up here, and I would like to ask our House of Representative candidates one more question. And we'll start actually, Mr. Saul, with you. And the question is, it's a fun one, that's why I want to throw it in. Would you consider putting the entire state under one time zone? If so, which one?
Or is it one time zone, or is it on daylight savings or not?
Both.
Both.
In the House, that's been a conversation, not the time zone, but the daylight savings. And my understanding is that there's a federal issue as well, or other state issue. So I'm fine with having this all on time zone or all on daylight savings time if that's the case. but I think we ought to build up a consensus that it works. We have quite a disparity between North Idaho and Eastern Idaho and farmers and schools and all the rest. So build up the consensus and get something done. I'm all for that. I love to do it, and please give me a shot at doing some more. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Captain Larson.
I'd like to know what you guys think. You know, I think it's, we have more in common with Spokane than we have with Boise sometimes. And so I think, again, I would want to listen to the constituents here and say, what are the pros and what are the cons, and how would we do it in a way that makes sense?
All right, next up, Mr. Whitaker.
Well, Catherine stole my answer. I was going to say, I'd like to know what you think. It's just funny traveling south when you see that line come up and go across, and it just doesn't make sense to me in some ways. So whoever wrote that question, my email is cornell@cornellforidaho.com, cornell@cornellforidaho.com. I'd really like to hear your ideas. One of the things that was just brought up is that it's a federal issue. Well, not in the state, it's not. And we've got to quit doing that. Our nanny is not that much in control of us and was never intended to be. If it's a state issue, we need to address it at the state level and ignore the federal government. Just ignore them. What are they going to do? Send in F-15s over a clock? I don't think so.
All right.
It's hard to believe, but I think we have a consensus here that we want to hear from you all. I don't really have a strong feeling either way. I don't. I think there are a lot of other issues that I've been focusing on, but so I'd like to hear also from you all. Thank you.
Okay, moving into our Senate race. First up. No, yeah, you want to start with the time zone? I'm going to save that one. That's the relaxation question. Dan Rose, you will be our first up. And the question is, should public lands stay in public hands?
Okay, so the public lands issue has had conversations since I got here in 2014. I'm for the retaking of public lands under the equal footing doctrine. The public lands can be taken from the federal government and put into the endowment fund for schools. And when the complaint comes in that we don't have enough money for facilities for schools, that's one of the areas that you can get big bang for the buck. So I'm for it. I think the state can manage the lands, and in the management, they will sell off some of them as auction. And I know the Department of Lands Commission does that, and the money goes in a portion to which goes to the schools, facilities.
Excellent, thank you. Mr. Woodward.
No, I don't necessarily support it like we're going to take those back. One, I hear that all the time, we're going to take them back, and if you look at the title report, those lands have always been owned by the federal government. We were given a certain amount of lands at statehood, and we were given a certain amount for our endowment. Now we need to manage those lands, and so when we talk about managing those lands, we have a very successful program in the state of Idaho called the Good Neighbor Authority, which allows the Idaho Department of Lands and soon to be other partners to take on projects on federal lands. So where historically, like when I was growing up, we didn't talk about the school budgets and the shortfall in the schools nearly as much. That was because 25% of timber sale proceeds were being routed to the county road and bridge and the schools. That went away when the timber sales on federal grounds fell so drastically over the last 30 years. With the Good Neighbor Authority program, we have the ability to do that again. Good Neighbor Authority was set up originally with some investment from the state, private partners, and the agreement was made that the money would stay inside the Good Neighbor Authority program until the program was up and operating steadily. That time is now. I've talked with the old Idaho Department of Lands Director. I've talked with some others. and I pushed on it. The 4 years that I was in the legislature, every year we pushed on it when we got to the budget committee and reminded them of that promise. And now is the time we're going to go back and push even harder, start to bring some of those timber sale proceeds from Idaho Department of Lands timber sales performed on federal lands and bring those back into our communities where we have that timber and that resource.
Okay, and now the question about Proposition 1. So Jim, if you would get us started on this question, do you support it? Why or why not?
Sorry about this. So I want to go back to an open primary. And so how do we get there? Well, Proposition 1 might be the way that we get there. Idaho had an open primary well before I was born, I understand, back to about 1931. And we operated that way with an open primary until just 12 years ago. I said in the opening that I want to preserve what we have here in Idaho. I think we've strayed in the last 12 years with that closed primary because we've eliminated so many voters, and when you narrow down the voting pool, you get an answer that doesn't represent the whole. Those numbers are 1 million registered voters in the state of Idaho, about 270,000 unaffiliated. I think that those people who are independent, that they're Idahoans, I believe that many of those people just don't want to be told by a party how they should vote. And so they don't want to go and affiliate with a party. But then we've taken away the ability for them to participate in the primary election process. And we know in Idaho, we're heavily red, or have to be that way. But the result is we've narrowed down the pool even more, and we end up with election results that don't reflect all the people. So I think it's time to get an open primary. I know there's some consternation about the ranked choice voting system. I spent some time just recently going back and reading the text of Proposition 1, because you have to look at really how does this work. There was a piece missing that I thought was in there, so that raised it a little bit more of a question for me. So I don't know. I will wait and see. This is a citizens' initiative. Proposition 1 is a citizens' initiative, just as Medicaid expansion was in 2018. We'll wait and see how the people of Idaho weigh in, and then we'll work to move forward with that accordingly.
So I'm against Proposition 1. I was at a symposium last week, and Kathy Larson was there. And it was discussed that the bill is incomplete in its conception. And what I mean by that is that they're asking the county to pay for the implementation of all the equipment and everything else that would go along with the recreation of the voting wheel. Also, the technology part of it in the ranked choice gets sent down to Central County, and it's outside the county. There is no integrity of analysis or audit of the vote, a ranked choice vote in the county. It's someone else in another location. Those are two big, huge problems, and the county commissioners would like to know how this is going to be funded, because they don't have the money to do it. It's recreating the wheel. It's an agenda from the left, and it's unacceptable.
Thank you. Dan, if you want to stay there, it might be easier. Sorry, come back up. You're next. I'm going to ask you the same question we asked the representative candidates. How do you propose to improve accountability to your constituency on decisions and votes?
So there are many ways to communicate with the people of the district. I watch the letters to the editor regularly, both the and the reader. I often make comment on some issues, and most of the time my comments satisfy my open door policy. If you've got a problem, then you need to come with a solution that's sourced and vetted. I don't want to hear necessarily the emotional part of what you want to get done. I want to know what the facts are. I want to know what the sources are that you're coming from. I put this question to Carolyn and some others. There's a claim that $5.2 billion in sales tax is not being collected. where's the source? I consulted the Idaho Tax Commission, and they have no record of it. So where's the source? You can't just make claims without sourcing them. I'm against the grocery tax. I don't know where you're gonna go, so I'm gonna say it now. I would seek a rebate of $190 for 2 months. The last 2 months, I've added up the receipts, and that's what the number is. It's not $125. If the state says they're making a whole at $125, they're lying to you. And they're taking $65 from you, and that rebate should be higher. I'm also for I'll leave the grocery tax at that point, and maybe we'll get to another question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Woodward.
I think the accountability of voters comes in settings like this, but ultimately at the polls, that as you've heard from the other candidates, it really comes down to what is the communication effort. And so we have a lot of ways to talk with people anymore. It's a lot different. It even blends into that time zone conversation because we have the ability to get on a Zoom call and talk. We can email, we can text, and all of those things go on as a legislator. And so I put my cell phone out there. You can text me. That's the best way to get hold of somebody, right? But Idaho is a different place. The world is a different place. We're much smaller, and so that 400 miles between Boise and Sandpoint doesn't have to be that far anymore. And we have that means of communicating. And that's I was going to say all the time, that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, and so Idaho can be one time zone now. It's different than it used to be. I might as well say grocery tax right now. I think Dan's spot on. We need to raise the grocery tax credit, that amount. We did that one time while I was in the legislature. We went from $100 to $125. We need to bring that up some more, just like we need to bring up the property tax exemption for homeowners. But that grocery tax, the system we have in place is very efficient right now because we're not trying to discern what is food and what is not. We're just determine what that appropriate amount is. We could index that and just set it to rise with inflation, but it comes down to getting consensus in the legislature to do that. And then the other part of the grocery tax credit is that we know we have lots of people coming in, staying here for a week or two or months at a time. And if we decide to not collect that till, then we're going to give away all that money from out-of-state people who would need to contribute to the load on the system here.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. And come right back up. Little exercise when there's only two of you. All right. The women's health question for our Senate candidates. I'm going to try to ask it just like I did before. What have you done or will you do as a senator to improve women's health care in Bonner County? Second part of that is the attraction and retention of doctors in Bonner County.
So I certainly recognize that we have a problem in the state of Idaho in regards to our abortion laws that we have in place right now. We are, there's a great amount of concern amongst the doctors in the state of Idaho, whether OBGYN, emergency room doctors. They do, I go out and talk to them, I've talked to many from all over the state, and the fact is, somebody can argue and say that, oh no, there's not a problem, they'd be just fine. But even when I talk to doctors from out of the state who tell me it's just fine, they're not the doctors who are in Idaho, working and licensed in Idaho with the possibility of a felony conviction and a loss of medical license. That's what's driving these doctors that we know. We all go to a doctor. We all respect and trust those doctors. They worked from anywhere from 11 to 15 years after high school graduation to be licensed, to earn our trust. And now we're saying we don't trust them. So we've got to come up with a different answer because we're going to cause ourselves a real crisis if we haven't already done that. The time that I was in the legislature before, we always talked about, let's bring these doctors in, so we paid for more residencies, more internships, because knowing that when a young doctor comes out of school, if we can get them to land somewhere, hopefully they stay, And now we put in place a policy that's causing exactly the opposite effect. Okay, so I spent 6 years between 2017 and 2023 with the Pender Lake Hospital Taxing District, and we had three entities that we funded through your tax dollars, $1.4 million of your tax dollars. One of them was behavioral health, and it was stated that a doctor left and that we would not be able to get a psychiatrist, which is what the BGH wanted. Even though POHD is running the organization of the clinic, BGH is calling the shots. And they said that they couldn't get it because of the cost. Well, wouldn't you know, 2 months later, they got the psychiatrist and able to afford them. It's a false condition that we cannot afford them. This is a beautiful community. Recreationally, outside of the hospital environment, I can't imagine why doctors who have conservative leanings would not want to come here, and we can pay for it. The grocery tax, as Jim talks about, the $19 to $20 million, he does not want to give that up. And that's the problem down in Boise. They don't necessarily care about what's in your pocket, it's what is in their pocket. And they're saying that they won't get rid of, because the IFF has got it on the agenda to repeal it this session, and I'm for the repeal. But if a repeal doesn't happen, I'm for the raising of the rebate. And they won't repeal it because they can't operate without that $19 million. I'm going to tell you that there's an immigration center policy study that came out 2 weeks ago, and $72 million comes from immigrants, undocumented immigrants. We are not going to be able to get rid of that one either, because the money, the tax money is, how do we say? That's is cocaine.
Ms. Rose, if you would just stay right there. I want you to take the light question. How do you feel about the time zone issue? What would you consider the entire state under one time zone?
I think that's fine. I agree with the fact that up here we're, how do we say, operating on the same level as Spokane. So down south's not going to see it that way, so you're going to have a consensus of what we're going to do on it. I don't think that one is rocket science, and I could easily be in either time zone and it wouldn't bother me, but for us, it appears that Pacific time zone would be best.
Ms. Woodward.
I've heard Mr. Rose a couple times now comment about they, and Jim doesn't want to give up that money, and he's telling her that like there's some other entity other than us. We're here participating in our state government, and I'm asking to go and represent you. So when I say that we should collect that $19 or $20 million from out-of-state folks, that means so that you don't have to pay that. That's an offset, right? That's what we're saying, is that that money comes in from the people who are putting the load on the system, and you don't have to pay it. Could we do without that $19 million in the budget? Yes, this Idaho State budget is about $14 billion. So, but $19 million is still $19 million, and so we wouldn't want to give that up just because. Happy with, to support a change in the, that's one, I think it probably doesn't, as I said, make sense that Idaho could be one time zone. When I was in the submarine in my younger days, we had 2 cycles going, 18-hour day. We worked 6 hours on, 12 off, 6 hours on, but at the same time we had a 24-hour cycle overlap. So every third day you got worked from midnight to 6 in the morning, you trained and worked, did things all day long, and you went back on watch at 6 in the evening till midnight. And then the other days you just were on for parts of that. So I can adjust to any time zone, I guess. So that's the answer to that.
Thank you very much. Hard to believe, but the time has come for our closing statements. We will start with our commission candidates, and Steve Johnson, you're up first. Reminder, you have 3 minutes.
So again, I'm Steve Johnson. I'm a candidate for county commissioner in Bonner County. One of my main goals is to return common sense leadership to Bonner County government. Common sense leadership requires the ability to focus on the day-to-day business of county government, including everything from road maintenance to paying the bills. Common sense leadership also means that county commissioners need to respect each other and respect the public. County commissioners must also have an ability to look to the future, including continued planned growth and affordable housing. Bonner County commissioners make decisions that impact all of us every day. Everything from roads and bridges to law enforcement and property taxes are on the agenda of the county commissioners. Local government is the best government, in my opinion. County commissioners need to be honest and willing to represent every citizen of Bonner County. 2 years ago, in 2022, I ran a write-in campaign against a person who had run a dishonest and deceitful campaign in the primary. His radical behavior cost Bonner County taxpayers over $100,000 and endangered the music festival at Sandpoint. His radical behavior has hurt the schools in Priest River. His radical behavior has hurt the public libraries in all of Bonner County. And his radical behavior has hurt women's health care in the entire state. Fortunately, this year, that person lost the primary election. But he's still the chair of the Bonner County Republican Committee. He selects members of the Republican Committee who he endorses and who endorse him. My opponent is endorsed by Scott Herndon. I'm Steve Johnson, candidate for Bonner County Commissioner, and I'd like you to remember every registered voter can vote for every commissioner position, regardless of where you live in Bonner County. Thank you very much. Well done.
So first and foremost, I'd like to address the comments that were just made. I hope and believe that each person should be evaluated on their own merit and not by perceived associations with others. I ran my primary campaign very clearly as someone who is not affiliated or associated with any other candidate or any other group beyond the Republican Central Committee, because as a Republican, I wanted their endorsement so that that would be the vote of confidence from those members of our community to know that I was the candidate that they wanted to move forward. And I was not going to run without their endorsement. Now, to the business of a county commissioner, should you choose to elect me to that position for the District 1 seat, the things I'll be committed to will be to truly respect my fellow electeds and not make false accusations. I would second the vote of all of my fellow county commissioners for the purpose of discussion so that we could debate and get to the best possible decision instead of not listening and shutting one another down. I would do the same thing with all other electeds in our county and at our state level. I would seek to build trust with all of our county community members and our county employees. We will do better working together as iron sharpening iron to help one another be challenged to come up with the best possible decisions. We need to find a way to work together in spite of our differences to help our community as a whole. We need to finish the comprehensive plan in a thoughtful way that accounts for that future growth, while understanding that private property rights are critical with respect to the fact that no one has the right to harm their neighbor. We also need to figure out how we're going to be thoughtful about our future county budgets. You heard me speak earlier. We need to be more committed to being accountable to every dollar, every line item in that county budget to make sure that it's warranted and appropriate to spend your tax dollars on. And we need to be sure that we are applying our county code, our local law, equally to all citizens, all applicants, and not playing favorites and not making on-the-fly decisions that are not based on facts. These are the things I'm committed to. I just want to remind everyone, at the end of the day, you're essentially stakeholders in a large multi-million-dollar corporation known as Bonner County government. And you're trying to decide who's the most qualified candidate to be on your board of directors. I ask you to please do your research and choose wisely. Brian Domke, District 1 County Commissioner candidate. Thank you.
Glenn McCray.
That's you, Glenn.
Glenn McCray.
All right, well, my name's Glenn LaFay. I'll reiterate that. If you would have asked me 5 years ago if I'd be up here standing in front of you, I'd told you I lost your mind. First off, thank you all for coming out here very much. I know it's sometimes a hassle to get out here and do this, but it's appreciated by all of us. I'd like to thank all the people that put this on for us and for us to get our word out there. This is one of the most difficult things I've ever done in my life, but yet it's also one of the most gratifying. I sometimes just want to throw in the towel and just forget about it, but every now and then a person walks up to me and gives me a shot in the arm and says, I'm doing a great job, and they thank me for doing it. I truly appreciate that aspect. If you walk away with nothing else tonight about me and about your vote, just know that my main goal right now is for the people of Bonner County. I am not in the pockets of anybody. I have actually turned down endorsements. I can go to Sunshine and pick out friends and people that I know, people that I can walk right up to or share dinner with or have a cup of coffee with and know them by name. I am in it for you. I'm a representative of you, and I want to be here for you. I want to walk in there with an open door policy and allow meaningful, constructive conversation. Thanks again. I really do appreciate this time, and I hope that you see fit to vote for me for Bonner County Commissioner, District 3. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Ron Horn.
So in closing, I'd like to state that I'm a Christian conservative Republican. I support our constitutions, and I'm very proud of that. I disagree with the earlier comment that the county commissioners is a non-partisan position. It is a partisan position. We as commissioners are in charge of a $75 million budget. How would you like that money to be spent? You want to spend on critical infrastructure and safety, or do you want it squandered on social programs? That's your choice, because you are the government and you're going to elect a representative in November on how they're going to spend your money. So make that choice wisely. Yesterday was my second day as being appointed onto the Bonner County Commissioner. I'm going to recant that. Monday was my first day. Yesterday was my second day. It was my first Bonner County business meeting that I attended. It was probably one of the largest agendas that has probably been seen for years, and I got to get broke in properly. Out of probably 37 different agendized items, every member of the public was allowed to speak on the agendized items. So we are bringing back free speech. Is there more work to do? Yes. And I'm going to strive to make sure that that is done. I think that all of us can agree, and I think that all of us sitting in this room tonight have watched at least one of the Bonner County Commissioner public meetings in the last 2 years. And I think that we can all agree that the decorum in there has been horrible, and that we're not being represented because of the fighting and the snarky remarks going back and forth. I hope that you all will take the time to watch yesterday's meeting. It was one of the best professionally run meetings that I've seen in the last couple of years. The decorum was great. All three of the commissioners were working together, and I was very proud to be a part of that change. Volunteerism. I've been volunteering here for 25 years, and seeking this position I see is an opportunity for me to keep giving back at the highest that I can in this community. And I hope that you will understand, and I hope that you will vote for me to be your representative, as I do not wish to be a politician. Politicians are many blood-sucking ticks. If you look it up, I don't care to be a blood-sucking tick. I would like to be your representative. So in closing, I would like to say, vote for a conservative Republican. I hope that I've earned your vote. Please vote for Ron Korn, Bonner County Commissioner, District 3. Thank you.
All right, next voting, Mark Sauer.
I want to thank all of you for coming out tonight. I really appreciate it. This was not on my bucket list either. But like a lot of things you do when you're a firefighter, you lean in, you go into buildings that are not really something that you want to stay in. But what I found is you lean forward and you get busy and you get things done. The last 2 years I've gained a considerable amount of experience, quite a bit of training. I've had some success. Like I said, I've run 5 local bills for our district, all started from here. So I know how to get things done, and I've lived a life of service. I dispute some of the comments about women's health, because I know we passed some women's health bills in 2023, passed 3 more in 2024. Were they enough? We have lots of work to do. I'll answer it that way. But I will say something I learned from the fire service, and that was you eat the elephant one bite at a time. So it just takes good, hard, long work. And it means you have to work with a lot of people. It's also mentioned that there was a women's health bill last year that died because of the majority of Republicans. That's not accurate. It died with the Speaker of the House and of Representatives. Most of us never saw that. The only thing we ever heard is it got read across the desk. So that's how things work in Boise. So you do need to work together. You do need to have a spirit of collaboration. You do need to have quite a bit of respect for other people. And you need to work together on it and work hard. That's what it takes. That's what I've shown as my work experience. And that's my promise to all of you right now. That send me back and let me work 2 more years for all of you to get things done. That's my interest, and I live for it. So, thanks. I'm asking for your vote. Please vote for Mark Sauer. Thank you.
Next up, Sharon Midday.
One thing my many years as a journalist taught me is that there are always 2 extremes, and that most people are in the middle, and I like to think of myself as the voice in the middle, which is why I've spent so much time talking to unaffiliated and Republican voters as well as Democrats. And the reason ultimately that I am standing up here, and I'm doing my best and I'm going to talk fast, I feel that our state is failing Idaho families. Republicans in the State House continually make it harder for families, especially those with young children, to work and succeed. And we know that thriving families are the backbone of a thriving economy. The state allocates $0 for affordable housing. And affordable housing is an economic issue, not a welfare issue. GOP leaders gutted the Idaho Child Care Program, then cut off hundreds of families from this critical support, despite having $50 million in unspent federal grant dollars for child care programs. Child care is an economic issue, not a welfare issue. The Medicaid eligibility threshold for pregnant women, new moms, and children is significantly higher than that of many other states. Healthcare is an economic issue, not a welfare issue. I could go on, but I won't, and I don't have any time. But if you send me to Boise in November, I will work hard for Idaho families. And perhaps if we can bring more balance to the legislature, we can blunt the bullying tactics of the IFF and return to the days when Democrats and Republicans sat down together to work out long-term, viable solutions to these and other issues. Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I look at the opportunity to become a state representative, a public servant, as an opportunity to serve more people at a time. And it won't matter, it doesn't matter to me what is on the end of your name. I don't mean your last name, the letter that comes with your voting record, whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, an unaffiliated, a Constitution, a Libertarian, a Green Party, and yes, we do have all of those in this county. It's kind of cool. I will listen to you. I will do the work that is necessary to keep Idaho free, a good place to live, a good place to raise your children, a good place that your children can stay in when they get out on their own. That's my desire, to see, especially Bonner and Boundary counties, be the kind of place that I grew up in here, where we knew our friends, we didn't really have what you would call enemies. We just knew each other and we got along. I won't sneak attack at you from behind a keyboard. You'll have my phone number, you'll have my email address, and many of you know where I live. And I get people that call out to me all day long whenever I'm in town. They know me. And it's been quite a humbling and wonderful experience. I wouldn't look at having this happen to determine this, but the fire has showed me what kind of people live in this county. This is a wonderful place to live, and I want to maintain that. If you send me out to Boise, I'll work hard for you. CornellForIdaho.com, and my email is my name at hotmail.com. 1 L and no Z.
Thank you. Catherine Nelson.
Thanks. As I talked a little bit earlier about the amazing people that live here, the businesses that we have here that are doing incredible things. Aircraft manufacturer, first place refrigerated salad dressing, helicopters. We're making parts for emergency rooms. There's so many different businesses that are thriving here. And we've got 500 nonprofits that are incredibly generous, and they're working really hard to make this community great and to bring music and business. But they're doing that despite the fact that the state has systematically underfunded cities and counties in the state of Idaho, and that hurts rural communities like ours disproportionately. And Scott Herndon got mentioned earlier. He was at a John Birch Society and explained that the power of legislators is to be able to not fund what the people want. Doesn't matter what we vote for, doesn't matter what passes, legislators can refuse to fund it, and that is what's happening. And I want to go to Boise and start to switch that, because we're paying quadruple what we were paying 20 years ago, and it's unsustainable. Our schools in Boundary County are suffering. Our schools in West Bonner County are crushed. We shouldn't be having endless levies to pay for basic operational public services. And so if you send me to Boise, and I heard the comment about the fact that Democrats just want to spend the money. I would put my financial chops up against anyone up here, and I look forward to working with people across the aisle to make things happen and make sure those budgets balance. I've done it for businesses. I'm doing it for businesses in this community now.
Thank you very much. Jim Woodward.
Good evening. Thanks again for coming out. Appreciate your time. I was thinking about a minute ago how fast this goes by, and I realized, gosh, I must really like this stuff now. It goes by that quickly. It is fun. It is interesting to talk policy. It's interesting where we want to go as a state. Since winning the Republican primary election back in May, I have been essentially I have somewhat taken on that role of state senator, just in the sense that I've been responding to a lot of people and having a lot of conversations on different issues. That ranges from trying to figure out a water system north of Monterey Ferry, how to put it back in compliance with regulations on safe drinking water standards, sewer system operations here in the state of Idaho, so we've got water and sewer taken care of. We've been working quite a bit in this discussion on Albany Falls, the gates, the repair of the gates, and then also also associated with that operation of our lake here, and the summer water levels. That's been a conversation. We've had the governor up to be part of that. We're trying to get after that to come up with a better answer than what we're being told right now from a federal agency. And then part of it too, just making connections for folks here in the community with the right person in Boise. When you spend your time down there as a legislator, you get to know all the people in the agencies, and when there's something going on, you just simply get to call. Probably one of the most rewarding I can share with you, it was early on my first term. I was out on a Saturday running a road grader out in Sagal, and I got a call from someone who's in Seattle, and they couldn't get the paperwork through. Their relative needed surgery in the hospital and couldn't get the right paperwork through the Department of Health and Welfare. Sat in the road grader, made a phone call to the director of the Department of Health and Welfare. He got hold of the right person. Within a couple hours, the paperwork was taken care of. That's rewarding. That's part of what this job is. And that person had that surgery that day. So that's helping people out of the district. So that is why am I telling you all this? So I just want to let you know that I'm engaged in the job, ready to work for you. I have that 4 years of experience, and part of that was when I look around at this, at that 4 years of experience, I can see clearly and hear from you too what the problems are we're facing, whether we're talking about roads, healthcare issues, our schools, or the property tax system. I'm ready to tackle those. And I think with my little 2-year breather, I'm ready to come back hard and go at the local job. Thank you.
Again, thank you for all coming out. There's lots of issues. I've got probably about 20 issues on my list here. Most of them didn't get addressed. We have another forum on the 15th with the reader. Hopefully some different questions will come up there, and you'll have a better understanding of who we are as we represent you. When I got here 10 years ago, I immersed myself in the political scene. Countless number of hours at the Bonner County building and commissioners meetings. I was VFW junior vice commander. Again, I told you I was a member of the hospital taxing district for 6 years. And I know I've immersed myself in how do we say, the issues of the day. We didn't get asked the question about property tax, but that one's another big one. And I do agree with the several comments that were made about a impact fee. And to me, that impact fee would look something like the state would provide the law that allows the county to seek that impact fee up to a maximum of $5,000 on the sale of homes from people from out of state. I think in that situation, that money that is generated, how do we say, at the $5,000 level or less, in this county, meets the 3% rise that the county can automatically vote to put on your shoulders. So to me, that fee would require a waiver, and a permanent waiver of foregone tax, and therefore you won't see an increase in the budget. The money will be the same, but it won't be an increase. So there's solutions I have that have not really been discussed. Whatever's not discussed at the next forum meeting and at the Barbara Carpenter Show, I will put on my website at roseforidaho.com. And I have an email, roseforidaho@gmail.com. You can write me at any time. But as of the 15th, I will put all this information up on my website. And you'll be able to see, read, and explore what I stand for. Again, I appreciate your time. I wish enthusiastically to represent you in carrying the Liberty torch forward and not going back to where we were 2 years ago. Scott Herndon has done some good. There's things I disagree with on his activity, but I'm willing to carry that Liberty torch in his absence. Thank you.
Thank you. Please give all of our candidates a big round of applause. First and foremost, we thank you for your time. What you're doing is so important, and just thank you all for your commitment. I love coming here because everybody's so passionate. They're so connected and so passionate about Bonner County, and always learn a lot. So thank you guys very much for all the things you do. I'd like to thank our partners, of course, the Bonner County Daily Bee, KRFY Community Radio, and Selkirk Association of Realtors. I also want to thank our audience, of course. Thanks for taking some time to get to know the candidates a little bit more. One of the things I would encourage everybody to do this year, if you've not done it, I bet you probably all have, read up on Prop 1. It's a simple name, but there's a lot to it. No matter where you fall on it, just know what it is that you're voting on. That and all of the candidate information that they have made available on their websites. Make good decisions on November the 5th. The most important thing that we have as Americans is the right to vote. So we appreciate your time tonight. Thank you very much. And good evening.